Hey, what's happening, everybody? Robert Phoenix here. Yes, broadcasting to you live from South Central Texas, Austin, where, of course, we have the morning mist and haze, and now starting to burn off. It's kind of a pattern, and by the time we swing into the afternoon, we are up into the 80s and quite muggy. It's very unusual weather for this time of year in these parts. How is everybody today? On the eve of when Antifa takes to the streets and never leaves, occupies them for all eternity. The locus of power, the centralized government or the non-centralized government, will be run from the curb. How does that sound? I don't know. Maybe it could be an improvement over what we've got going. Or then again, maybe not. So tomorrow is supposed to be the big day, November 4th. And I cooked up the chart for November 4th. And we're going to take just a quick look at it. Let me tell you what's going to happen for today's show. I'm going to do a little bit of a preamble, kind of get into a couple of things. And then I'm going to play an interview that I did earlier today with Patrick from Citizen-zen-Health. And Patrick has been on the show a couple of times before. Let me see if I can reference that. Hold on. I'm just looking something up. Give me 1 second. Lots of details this morning. Lots of details. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's see what we got here. Best Phoenix podcast. What is this? Somebody is rebroadcasting my shows. Hold on. Phoenix podcast. This is strange. Okay, so this is so weird. Okay. This is very bizarre. Somebody is linking to my... I'm just finding this out. This is very fascinating. It's a website called player.fm/podcast, and it's under Phoenix. And there are all these Phoenix podcasts. For instance, the West Ham Way on Phoenix FM, Phoenix Free Presbyterian Church. What else do we have here? It's Always Sunny in Phoenix, the Suns podcast. And then there's me and a bunch of other Phoenixes. Phoenix Down, Phoenix 4K229 Driver. Very interesting. The Robert Phoenix Show, the Spiritual Phoenix podcast. That's not me. Phoenix Rising Radio. That's not me. Wow, interesting. I didn't know this. Should I be upset? No. Let them just carry it on downstream. I'm okay with that. The more people that get to listen, the better off this whole thing is. That's how I feel about it. Free the content! Yeah! Read the content now. Hold on a second. I'm just trying to find this piece of Patrick. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll put some of the links to the Patrick shows on the YouTube page. Let me just see one more. Online talk. Okay, I'll link to the Patrick shows on the YouTube page because you'll be able to find out a bit more. What else? I said River Phoenix. River Phoenix is on Wikipedia. I need my own Wikipedia page. I tried to put it up one time. I did try to put it up there, and they took it down. I don't know what you need to do to get a Wikipedia page. Anyway, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a bit of a preamble, and not just a ramble like I just had, but a bit of a preamble. And then we're going to get into this thing I did with Patrick today. And Patrick came to me a couple days ago. Basically said, "Look, I'm having my mind blown. I'm having all these spiritual experiences and these incredible epiphanies, and I'm figuring things out. And I want to share it with people." I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's put it together. We'll meet. We'll do a pre-record, and we'll just see what happens. And if I think it's a complete gibberish, I'm not going to run it. And if it's something intelligible and there's something in there for people, we'll definitely air it. So I'm going to air it, because I think, to be honest with you, this is a very new thing for him. He's coming out as somebody who's, found the light. And when you go through an experience like that, it can be very difficult to describe. Because what he was sharing with me via text, which is very different than what we share via talking, it's just a different form of communication. And so he's getting used to articulating what his experience is. It's not easy. And so about halfway through, he started to kind of really pick up steam and was really appreciating some of the things he was sharing and their insights that could be very valuable for us. So I want to play that a little bit later. It's about a 35-minute long piece. But just going to get into a bit of a preamble today. A couple things. We've got the Antifa taking it to the streets. Big event happening tomorrow. I whipped up the chart. I did a time for the big event, which is, I did 12 o'clock in New York City. And, I could do sunrise, whatever. I just picked kind of an arbitrary time, high noon. High noon for America on 11/4. And what I came up with is, Pluto in the first house and Capricorn ascending. Now, the big action may not happen until at night, if there's any action at all. Is the chart remarkable? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. The one thing that I am seeing here, though, is the Mars-Pluto square. And Mars is in Libra. Of course, that's that kind of, adrenalized, aggressive need for balance, the need for fairness. I talked about this a couple weeks ago on the Sunday. I think I talked about this last Sunday in the Sunday night live stream, that Mars in Libra needs a cause. Well, here we go. The cause is upon us, or upon any number of people that are willing to take to the streets. But I think that we're not going to see a whole lot tomorrow. I'm going to go on my gut instinct, even though we've got a Taurus full moon, very emboldened, the Taurus full moon, full-bodied. From an occult perspective, the full moon is very powerful in Taurus because it's a goddess. So I can see, the people who are kind of switched on to astrology and esoterica in the Antifa movement, sort of the pagan anarcho wing of the Antifa movement, out there drawing down the moon. Oh goddess, come down, empower us as we seek to castrate the great male in the District of Columbia. Oh, great goddess, descend your powers onto thee. I could see that happening. Although they probably wouldn't be so prosaic. So I guess if you want to pull down the moon and energize the feminine as opposed to the masculine, that would be a good time to do it. You would want to channel that energy. But I'm thinking that maybe, just maybe, since these polarizing events actually happen on the Gemini moon, that maybe quite possibly it might be 1 or 2 days after the 4th. Because if we wait about 2 more days, then Mars comes into closer square with Pluto. And really, probably about 10 days out, when because Mars will be at 8 degrees, so we're talking about 10 days. It gets 10 days from the 4th rather. So maybe about the 15th. Maybe it's that special 11:11 gateway. But I think something could happen because of the placement of Mars. I'm not sure it's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not sure anything's going to go down tomorrow. But it could. based on that full moon and the ritualization of the Taurus full moon. Yes. Baal. Taurus is Baal. The great god Baal. Speaking of Baal, my fantasy football season took a major hit yesterday. I'm like bad luck for fantasy football, man. I picked up Deshaun Watson on my fantasy football team. I got him on waivers. Not only did I get him on waivers, but this guy Will Fuller was coming back from a collarbone injury. And I know Will Fuller can really run. Can he catch the ball? Most of the time. Not always. He got iffy hands, but I know he can really run. So he came off of injured reserve right around the same time Deshaun Watson was really starting to blow up for the Houston Texans. And so I grabbed him, thinking, God, match made in heaven. Will Fuller, Deshaun Watson. Never played with each other before, but man, I'm feeling this. And you know what? I was right. Every game that Will Fuller played in with Deshaun Watson, he caught 2 touchdown passes. He would catch 40 a game, and 2 of those would be touchdowns. I'm like, I'm a genius. Look what I figured out. I'm a genius. I used my intuition. I used my rationality. I put it all together. And what did I get? I got 60 points per game from 2 players. I was crushing everybody in fantasy football. And I had a weird premonition. I said to myself, because Deshaun Watson was so amazing. He's a Virgo. He was so amazing. And it's like, it's perfect. Where do you go from here? Every week, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and better. Where is this going to end for this guy? It was amazing. And I had this premonition. Something's not right. Something's not right. Something could happen to Deshaun Watson. God, why do I feel this? I was super, super tired yesterday because I'd lost a day's worth of sleep. I woke up from my nap and I turned on the TV and the word just hit. Deshaun Watson out for the season. Torn ACL in practice. And he's a nice guy. He's a good dude, you know. There were a couple of workers, cafeteria workers, who lost their homes, or home. I guess they were married and they worked together in the cafeteria for the Houston Texans. They lost their home in the flood. And the players were talking about, well, what can we do? How can we help them? Well, Deshaun Watson, let me make sure I'm here. Deshaun Watson said, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to give them, my game check for a week. That's not insignificant. That was probably about a $400,000 check. He just handed it over to them. Here you go. Start your life. And he just been on that team. This is his first time. He's a rookie, and he just handed them his game check. He didn't wait around. He just said, "I'm going to take care of it." I mean, that's leadership. That's like, I'll bet you the guys on that team just said, "Man, dude, we will block our butts off for you." That's leadership, and it was. So he's a good guy. He's not just a creep. He's trying to get over on the system or make a lot of money or arrogant. No, he's a good dude, and wish him all the best. I hope he gets a speedy recovery. That's a very human issue, very personal. I'm sure he's going through quite a bit today because he was really onto something, and now all of a sudden the brakes are put on, and that's a big spiritual lesson. Huge. Of course, he's a Virgo. Not only that, but I had Aaron Rodgers on one of my other teams. What has happened to him? He's got 13 screws in his collarbone now. Tom Brady, better watch out. You're on my team too. I don't want to put the curse on. Anyway, so I don't know. I think that maybe something could happen tomorrow, only because we've got that really kind of esoteric / occult / pagan moon that from a esoteric perspective, people may want to take advantage of that energy. They might. But I tend to think that perhaps a day after that, when the moon is in Gemini, well, now we're really coming into that kind of split, right? We're coming into that duality, which we tend to see with a lot of these events. And I also think that Look, if I was running the Antifa revolution, they hired me, Antifa hired me to be their astrological consultant. If I got some of that good George Soros money, I would have said, well, you really want to get to that place where Mars is in a really tight square with Pluto, because that's going to really enhance your impact on the oligarchy. That's what I would suggest. Really? Yes, pay me $5,000. Pay me $5,000 for that advice. But nobody from Antifa actually, approached me or asked me about doing that. Would I do it? No, I wouldn't do it. Of course not. But if I was of the mind and of the persuasion, and I felt as though it was in the best interest for humanity, maybe I would. And maybe out of the spirit of camaraderie, I would say, comrade, you do not have to pay. For you free, I give it to you for the cause. Thank you, comrade. Yeah. You know what's interesting about November 4th? November 4th is the birthday of Ruth Handler. Ruth Handler. You may ask yourself, who the hell is Ruth Handler? Ruth Handler is the creator of Barbie. She's born on November 4th. And I wasn't aware of this. I was not aware of this, but this is really fascinating. Really fascinating. This is from Time magazine. And this tells you about the origins of Barbie. I'm going to read this to you. You got to wrap your head around this. This is a good one. Some of you might know this. Why is my computer not responsive? Oh, I hate it. Okay. It says the Barbie doll is not for kids' origins. This is a good one. Hold on. Oh God, I hate it when my computer's just sticky. You know that feeling? All you want to do is move it like just a couple of paragraphs and just get sticky stuck. Just not responsive in that way. All right, let me see if I can close a few windows here because I really want to read this. Let's see. Let's do this. Sometimes when you close windows, you can get a little traction. All right, let's do that. I'm running off of an older computer here. It's for what I paid for it. It's actually a pretty good deal. It's a pretty good machine for what I paid for it, but could it be a little more responsive? I think so. All right, let me see what we got. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So this is from March 9th, 2015, and this is from time.com. The precursor to the Barbie doll was not meant for children. Born in 1952, the inspiration for America's most famous doll was a saucy, high-end call girl named Lily. First created as a comic strip character in the Hamburg newspaper Bild Zeitung, the Bild Lily doll became so popular that she was immortalized in plastic and sold as an adult novelty, according to Robin Gerber, the author of Barbie and Ruth. Lily dolls could be bought in tobacco shops, bars, and adult-themed toy stores. Gerber writes, men got Lily dolls as gag gifts at bachelor parties, put them on their car dashboard, dangled them from the rearview mirror, or gave them to girlfriends as a suggestive keepsake. The proto-Barbie was just shy of a foot tall, with bulging breasts and a platinum blonde ponytail, made up for a night in the town with red puckered lips and blue eyeshadow. Although Barbie's curvy proportions are modeled after Lily's, the German doll's heavy makeup and suggestively arched eyebrows didn't carry over to the American version. The dolls also have tellingly different feet, according to M.G. Lord of the author, Forever Barbie, the unauthorized biography of a real doll. Unlike Barbie, Lily doesn't have an arched foot with itty-bitty toes. She doesn't even have a foot, Lord writes. The end of her leg is cast in the shape of a stiletto-heeled pump, painted glossy black. In the comics, Lily was witty, irreverent, and sexually uninhibited. One strip summarized by Lord shows Lily covering her naked body with a newspaper and explaining to a friend, "We had a fight, and he took back all the presents he gave me." Another shows Lily in a bikini. When a policeman tells her that two-piece swimsuits are illegal, she says, "Oh, and in your opinion, which part should I take off?" Nonetheless, Lily dolls were soon coveted by children as well as adults. They caught the eye of 15-year-old Barbara Handler on a 1956 vacation in Switzerland with her mother Ruth, a co-founder of the Mattel toy company. So Barbie is named after Barbara. Ruth is her mother. Ruth Handler brought 3 of the dolls home with her to California per time. 3 years later, on this day, March 9th, she introduced her own adaptation at the American International Toy Fair in New York. The new doll was named after Barbie. It was named Barbie after Handler's daughter. Isn't that an interesting name, Handler? Like the whole idea that Barbie was born out of a woman named Handler. Because Barbie doesn't she just seem like an MK Ultra beta sex kitten? She comes replete with a handler, her mother, her creator. By the time Barbie turned 50 in 2009, Mattel sold more than 1 billion copies of the doll, partly by cultivating its wholesome image. I just kept the big breasts. Well, according to Time, but Handler acknowledged that Barbie was undeniably sexier than most American dolls of her day. She didn't see anything wrong with that, according to her 2002 obituary in the New York Times. Every little girl needed a doll which to project herself into her dream of her future. Really? Did every girl need that? She said in a 1977 interview, as quoted in the obituary, if she was going to do role-playing of what she wanted to be like when she was 16 or 17, it was a little stupid to play with a doll that had a flat chest, so I gave it beautiful breasts. Oh my God. This is great. This is great. That's it. I mean, that's it. That's the gist of that article. So Barbie, this is really interesting because I've been actually kind of exploring this, and I could get into some very salacious ground. Okay. Maybe I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for another show. I'm going to save it for Monday. I'm going to blast this open on Monday. This is going to be a flame. I'm not going to flame on right now. I just wanted to kind of give you just a little tidbit about November 4th. That was the birthday of Ruth Handler, Barbie's Handler. Barbie based on a German sex doll. The irony of it all is Ruth Handler is Jewish. So she's taking a German, so here we have this Jewish woman who's taking a German sex doll, right? It's kind of there's this interesting symbiosis going on there. Don't you think? I think so. I think there is. Anyway, why don't we get to the Patrick interview? Let's play the Patrick interview. So let me set this again, and let me just see if Patrick gave me his website. He hasn't given me his website yet. Okay. So let me just set this. This is a recording I did this morning with Patrick as he's trying to untangle and unwind these breakthroughs that he's been going through. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have him back on the show every so often, just so we can check in with him. And kind of allow him or give him a place where he can get used to kind of unwinding these thoughts and track his progress, because in a lot of ways his progress is to some degree related to us and our progress. If in fact we are all connected through consciousness, and you're listening to this, so it must have some merit or meaning. Before I do it though, I need to tell you a story. Last night, I was out with my buddy, and we were watching Thursday Night Football. And I came home, and I'm getting my groceries out of the car because I stopped at the store. And this young guy walks up to me. This is my apartment complex. And he says, "Would you like to make $30?" I'm like, "What? Excuse me, sir, would you like to make $30?" I'm like, whoa, what? And he's got a box of shoes. He's about 6 feet tall, and he's got a box of shoes. I said, well, what do you mean? What do you need? What's going on here? It's a funny way to introduce yourself to somebody. He said, he was really down, this guy. Young guy. He said, my sister just kicked me out, and I need to get home. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, where do you live? So I live in Kyle. I'm like, whew. Yeah. The drive to Kyle is not it's not terrible. It's probably about a 25-minute drive, 30-minute drive. But I didn't feel like taking an hour of my life and just saying, okay, hey, let's go, jump in the car. I'll take you to Kyle. Yeah, give me your $30. I didn't really feel like that. But I wanted to help him. So I said, well, what's going on, man? And he said, well, I said, why did your sister kick you out? Well, she's a Jehovah's Witness. I said, oh, she's religious. Yeah. Well, but why did she kick you out? I smoke weed. I said, oh, she didn't like it. No. Okay, well, it's her house. She can do whatever she wants. It's funny, though, this is a religious person. And I guess, I put up this thing on Facebook today about Mike Schell, and she was at the Obama Foundation Forum, the inaugural, and she was talking about how boys are coddled. Well, this kid was certainly not coddled, let me tell you. It's like, you smoke weed in my house, or you smoke weed, you don't stay here, hit the streets. He was not coddled. So I said, okay, well, let me see if I can help you out. I didn't feel like driving. I'm sorry. I have a good spirit. I'll help people, but I didn't really feel like it. So I said, okay, well, let me call you a cab. Can you get a lift? Can you get a lift or an Uber? Oh, I don't have my cell phone here with me. Oh, okay. Well, let me see if I can get you a cab. So I called the cab up, and it would be about $150. $150 to take him to Kyle. He didn't want to pay that. I don't blame him. So I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I can get him a lift and he can pay me. So I hit the Lyft app and I punched in his destination. And the only Lyfts that were available were the Lyft Black, which are limos, and they're quite expensive. So the same amount for him to go by cab was roughly the same amount by Lyft, and I wasn't going to spend $140 on him. If it was a $40 ride, he could pay me $30, and I'd take the rest, whatever. That wasn't the case. So then I'm like, well, what can I do for him? And I didn't want to bring him into my house either because I don't know this kid. I don't know him. I've got a lot of stake in my life. I'm willing to help somebody, but I also need to be kind of discerning and have some boundaries. So we're walking up, and I say, okay, well, we've got a community center up here. You could hang out on the couch in that community center all night if you want to, and watch TV, and then in the morning, figure it out, come down to my apartment at about 9 a.m., maybe I can help you. You can get a cheaper lift or something. So I go to take him up to the community center, and 9 times out of 10 when I go up there, there's nobody there. But last night, there are people playing pool, it's convivial, they're having fun, he doesn't want to go in. So at this point, it's like, this is out of my hands. This is something between him and God, right? I cannot intervene. He's got a bigger lesson here. I tried, but there were all these impediments in the way, and they were not happening. It was not happening for me to step in and play some kind of a role for him. It's an interesting kind of lesson to go through. Anyway, so he asked me, well, what do you do for a living? I said, I'm an astrologer. Really? And in Texas, when I say that to people, I have to really think about who I'm saying it to. Even in Austin, I mean, I run into Christians all the time. And, or I run into people, of course, you know the story. It's like, oh, do you work at UT? I've always wanted to look at the universe through one of those big telescopes. I was like, no, it's not quite like that. But here I am. It's like, it's about 10:45, 11 o'clock at night. And I got some kid who's got kicked out of his sister's apartment for smoking weed. I figure I can just tell him I'm an astrologer. Like, that's kind of a safe zone, don't you think? There's really no risk. There's no risk in this moment. I am an astrologer. Really? Oh man, that's so cool. So you can like horoscope stuff? Yeah. Oh man, I love that. Really, huh? Yeah. So this is on our way up to the community center, and then he's do you have any books? So I have a website. He goes, oh, cool. So I left him there to figure it out. I couldn't do anything more for him. I left him there. And he said, hey, Robert, what was your website again? What was your website? And then as I'm leaving, he says, hey, Robert, is there a book you could recommend to me? I'm like, oh, my God, this is totally surreal. I hope he's okay. He's a good kid. He's a good kid. I can tell he's a good kid. But I did not feel like, I'm kind of sacred about my place. I'm a 2 in human design. That's all you got to know. All right. Why don't I bring Patrick onto the show, or the interview with Patrick? Let me just load it up here. Okay. So what you're gonna hear is us talking this morning, and it's a lot of Patrick. It's a lot of Patrick as he tries to uncoil some of this stuff. And it's 35 minutes long, so hang in there and have a listen. And I'll be back at the end of the interview, and we'll talk some more, and then we'll wrap things up and be on our merry way with the rest of our day. Okay, so here is Patrick from Citizen-Zen. As promised yesterday, the lead-in to today's show, I am bringing Patrick from citizen-zen-health back onto the show it's been a while now, I think about at least 2.5 to 3 years. And Patrick is, what I'd call Patrick is a kind of a pioneer in the radical expression of freedom when it comes to the human spirit's body, mind, and soul. And we're going to talk about kind of where he is today and some of the revelations that he's gone through, which he really wanted to share with me. And at the end of the interview, I'll reference some of the other shows that he's done. So if you're really interested in what we talked about before, you can go back in time and kind of see maybe even the contrast in terms of his own personal development. So without any more delay, let's bring on one of my favorite Aries, Patrick. What's going on, Patrick?
Thank you for having me, Rob. Thank you for having me. Lots and lots of stuff's going on, but before we begin, I want to do this first. I want to wrap what we're doing in a blanket of love and protection and the clarity of light, not the white light, not the black light, but the clear light, that ultimately we are down here to unite, bring together in the union, and use this to go back home. That's why I'm here, to at least begin touching and discussing.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's crank it up.
I guess the easiest way to start is I'm just like any other one here. I'm not more or less special than any other one that is special. I took a journey that began many long time ago. We all did. But ultimately, I stayed in touch with my tea leaves that are out here in the field, in front of your eyes, and in front of our eyes, and I always asked for the higher guidance pretty much the whole time I've been here. I made lots and lots of mistakes. I learned everything backwards. I made many, many mistakes. But ultimately what happened is, due to my desire and never-ending spirit to be with myself as I truly am, I have achieved what many people talk about here in the union of the energy bodies, all of them, and what this has done for me. And I would like to, so to speak, tickle the ones who are paying attention, because the moment is here. I may have to take a couple breaths just to keep going. Just so if I take
That's
a breath,
okay. Let me just chime in for a second. One of the things that, and I've had an ongoing dialogue with Patrick now for a number of years, and one of my first points of contact with him was as a client, and got into his chart, and it was a really unique chart in a lot of ways. And we began to talk about this whole understanding, or this idea of being sovereign, disconnecting from the system, using natural law. And this is a really powerful kind of thrust in Patrick's life. And he's gone through a number of very arduous steps in order to work through that system, or that unsystem system. And
beautiful.
I think as a result of this, and this is probably kind of an outgrowth of that decoupling from the legal component of who we are, leading you into this trajectory of really true spiritual freedom. Am I close to that, Mark?
Absolutely.
Okay, why don't we start there? I think maybe that would give you.
Okay, so I heard something I want to touch on. Yes. I need you. You're going to bring me. You're going to keep me in earth. You're going to keep me on and in earth, brother. Thank you. Okay. Again, as I stated, I did everything backwards. I did everything backwards to bring time forwards. It wasn't about decoupling. It was about recoupling. I had to remember the maxims, if you will, of man's law, which led me to the spiritual maxims of creation, as above, so below. Some many know. This is so basic. This is so basic. And yet it's the foundation of your ability to move forward. You have to internalize everything in your field of vision. Everything that you see is there for a reason. There's absolutely no object in the perception of your field of vision that is not placed there for an exacting purpose. And if we don't listen to these, I call them the tea leaves, if we don't listen to them or even try to read them, then we just ultimately as a spirit tend to abandon our natures, because we've abandoned this time period, we've abandoned nature. We've been going back to it. The undoing that I'm aware of is been going on for some time, but my role in it has fundamentally shifted so that I can bring what is we call down here as the natural law, which is really the laws of creation, and how we structured this using light and sound so that we could come into the, and I just discovered this morning actually, but the neighborhood. This is the neighborhood. No one is ever bored here. This is the center of it all. This is the beginning, and as far as we know, this is the end. This is where it all is. This is where the moment is. This actual centerpiece of creation connects into a chain that goes on that you just can't perceive. We can't perceive. And we're attempting to do something very, 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 very great. And I just want to say right now that I would like to say that many, many, many of the ones who are in the earthly authorities, I guess I'll call them right now, They've done a commendable job. This is a very, very difficult density of energy to place oneself, to try to find oneself. Why are you here? Why? This question, a friend, a soul brother told me my superpower months ago. Or we were sitting around, I should say, trying to compare superpowers, if you will. And this is actually literally months ago before I even came into any of this. I know I have this in me. You got to believe, you got to have faith, you got to trust. But they told me your power, your superpower amongst it all is why. That's what I do for everyone that's around me. I push them to question why. In that question, if you accept this within you and play with it, it'll tend to unroll itself, or you'll start to see things, or these little synchronicities and new thoughts. And the field is pregnant, guys. The field is pregnant. What you say happens, especially now. Especially now. What we're saying is fruiting damn near instantly, especially if you have power down here. So we have got to be careful with what we're saying to one another and how we say it, the tone of our energy and how we express it and how we share that with one another. Please look, at least if you start somewhere, look here. I realized in my early 20s, mid-20s at the latest, everything I saw in other people was what I was seeing within my being, and they were acting as my mirror. And I knew this, so that I knew when I got very, very upset with certain people, I knew I was learning a lesson. I just didn't know what it was. And I kept asking, and doing my meditations and doing my prayings. And it's truly dedicating you, finding yourself. Many people right now are experiencing events and experiences that they cannot quite comprehend. But I want to say, if anyone else, well, it's not if, to the others who are already accessing portions of their other self beings, I guess I'll be broad at this moment, the ones that are doing this, be patient. Be patient. And I'm trying my hardest right now with all that I have in my being, and I've been traveling it for 7 days. I do nothing more than I do. I just sit here and breathe 3 breaths. There's very little that a calm, conscious, inner 3 breaths cannot disrupt. So that when you have a anxious moment, when you have a uncontrollability within you, just look out and breathe. When you inhale, you pull in your future. When you exhale, you give up the past. What we need to do collectively is come together, look upon your past, look upon the people that are around you, and ask yourself why they're there. Ask themselves what lessons they're there to teach you. As each of us does this and connects the family and the brotherhood of light together, you will be stupefied the embrace of creation that will come to you. But you have to stay in the moment and focus on really, at this time, one energy construct if you could. And that will be what we call here love. As I understand it, this is grace, aka the G race, the God race. We're down here racing. Grace, in my definition at the current moment that I would like to share, is simply this one affirmation to oneself to access their heart chakra, to show them. Thank you. Please forgive me and show mercy upon my soul. Say this to yourself and see yourself receiving this. You are the broadcaster, you are the receiver, you are the transducer, the battery, and everything in between. Inside these living bodies, all the power of creation has been put here for a reason in these living bodies. What they say, what we say about the power of these bodies is beyond measurably true. But you have to love yourself. And you have to, in that love and in that mercy upon yourself, as you build this energy, it will become very easy to use it with other people. It will be very easy to use it with those around you as you see completely anew what you've been holding against yourself and that person. They just simply offered an opportunity for you to see it if you chose to take it.
So it seems like, Patrick, that what you're sharing with us is things that I think we, on some level, know, right? I mean, I think that there's a case that can be made that, you know, people that are on this path have realized that this is pretty much all a projection of mind. And the people that show up in our lives, like you're sharing, they are a projection of our spirit, and we get to learn through it and from it. And it's a very powerful affirmation that you're bringing to the table, because obviously it's quite personal and it's something that you're embodying. You know, my sense is that you've had some kind of mystical breakthrough, and it's very difficult to articulate the ineffable, right? This is one of the primary sort of talking points that William James brought in when he talked about the definitions of the mystical experience. I'm wondering if you can touch on the event that opened you up and place that in kind of a time-space context, and maybe share, maybe not the feeling, because that's very difficult, but maybe share some of the narrative around that.
I can get into my mind. Okay. First off, I'd like to shift the mind construct, at least as the way I felt it just now, and the way you said mind. I would like to shift that at least for a moment into more of a dimensional model. It's just all dimensional. The mind here is split into three ways for this process to work in the manner it is right now. We have the heart mind, the brain mind, and the gut mind, and these are the three minds you need to bring into union to unite your chakras or to get the chakras going. How did I get there? With everything I've given you up to this moment, I then had to challenge myself knowing I knew this. Eventually, I found that it was in the law realm. My calling was within the law. You have a calling. It's been there since your childhood. You just have it buried under trauma. You have to process all that trauma to get at these knowings, to know your purpose going forward and why you're here, which becomes easier when you do open up that heart chakra. So in the mind, how did I do this? The easiest way to say it is within my heart, within this dimensional structure of creation, I gave up. I gave this world up. I got so empty for 3 months, this whole summer basically, that it gave me an opening to fill up with the law of creation. And what I realized in doing this is that it was all about the blood. The blood is the water of life, if you will, within yourself. And I realized, because I had been reading the Bible, which I have got to say, ask those who know me very well, I'm not a big Bible fan. However, I understand things weren't placed here without reason, so I always used it to understand the beginning and the end, the bonds and the binds of what's going on right now. And what I realized is this, and if there's no other message that does get out with this, this is how it's done. Within your being self, because mind is much too limited, within your being self, you need to get in there and you need to ask yourself if you're prepared to accept Christos. In whatever way that means to you, in whatever spiritual way. It doesn't have to exactly be a New Testament version. You need to understand the message in there, which is mercy, love, and forgiveness. That's it. And the reason is this. You need to invert the New Testament into the Old Testament. And what I mean by that is, if you go back and read the first 7 chapters of Genesis, or even Genesis 1 and 2, generally speaking, the Abel and Cain story shows up. The lesson for this is what I learned. I had to redeem the blood inside this body for something that has happened so far in the past that we could not foresee, but we did manage to bind and bond it. But the blood of Abel was spilled by Cain's hands due to jealousy based upon offering to God, which is us. And he got jealous and decided he did not want to perform his duty, and also stabbed his brother in the back and take his position away from him, which was granted by us. This actually caused this place. What you must do within your being in that body is get into that story in whatever way you can and acknowledge that you are the living embodiment of all that is in that book. Otherwise, that book wouldn't be here for you to read, because you're the living embodiment of that book and everything else in front of your face. But when you redeem, well, first, the lesson. Cain did it in vengeance. Or rather, I'm sorry, I have it backwards. I'm getting a little, let me breathe. Abel, when Abel was slain behind his back, his brother at that point didn't even have the willingness to give him warning, no equity. He didn't even say, I'm going to stab you, brother. He did it. Abel, in his disorganized place he found himself, called out in vengeance to the rest of the brotherhood to put him in his place. And that caused the rest of this. And that caused the confusion program we find ourselves within to grow from. And in the end, I guess what I'm trying to say to cut this is you must redeem, you must get into Cain and Abel and these entities. These are energy constructs. These are just names to use to play with them here. When you come into Jesus' message and it's resonating in your heart and you've done these other exercises, and you will feel this, and things will begin manifesting to show you you're feeling this. And that will get your mind to start thinking about these things in new ways. But when you get into the message of Jesus of forgiveness, mercy, and love, and then you bring that all the way to the top of Abel, who started the dissension, and you embody Abel, and you call out to creation, and you let them know who you are in this moment, and you also let them know that you're going to now redeem your blood in the living body here on the center stage of creation, And you will now atone for all your sins that you have caused upon yourself and your brothers down here, done of pure ignorance through various filters. But when you atone for your own sins in the name of that energy embodied within your being, and you connect this to the beginning and redeem Abel's blood that carries in your body right now, that blood is Abel's. You redeem that by Cain's hand in mercy, forgiveness, and love. And you do this a few times and mean it. And anchor this energy where you are in this field as hard as you possibly can. And when you do this, you create a bridge between chakras that are for you to bridge. Mine were my path, yours will be your path, but your chakra system will respond. But all these things I've shared have to be anchored in that body. And at the same time, as you anchor this love, that will help you unanchor or debond, debind, dechain all that holds you here, all that negativity. When I did this, guys, ladies and gentlemen, when I did this, hold on. When I did this, I got to see the field. I forgot one part. Let me add this before I say what I'm about to say. Otherwise, it will not make sense. At the highest levels of creation, Cain and Abel, as I understood it at that time, and I need to use that for what I'm giving at this moment, at that time I understood Cain and Abel as this, and this is what you may need to get to where you need to be. Cain and Abel is the top two ordering fields of this dimension. Cain is chaos and Abel is order. Through the chaotic beginning of our beginning and the ordering process that we began doing to ourselves, that's how we do things. Ultimately, two fields were set in place to interact with one another. One was a tiller of the field, one was a tender of the field, and they were supposed to work together. And again, Cain broke that, and it caused a break in the dimensions, and here we are. You need to redeem that blood, and when you do, I experienced something along the lines of, I stepped out and I could see the field, and I could see not a lot, to be very honest. It was that moment where Neo in the Matrix is in the train station. It's in between everything. I will say this. No, I won't. After I sat there for a while, knowing what I had just done, I was rather ecstatic, obviously. It's not describable. I was very joy. I found the joy in my being. That's one thing I've been seeking I didn't have, and I knew I didn't have it. You got to be honest with yourself, guys, what you don't have. I didn't have that joy, and I had been looking to a few spiritual masters that I saw here, only a couple that I resonated with. They all have a resonance. They are all to be honored. But I knew I didn't have the joy from a spiritual leader who pointed that out to me, and I accepted it. So I got into an ecstatic joy I can't describe. I fell in love with myself, I guess is the best way to describe it, which I hadn't had for 34 years, 34 and a half, give or take. So with that, and in that moment, outside of the bounds of this dimension, within my body in the way that it holds us here, I was within what we would call a filtered consciousness. And that filtered consciousness gives you the view to go back down and see without the filters. Within that perspective. But I witnessed the graduation event. creation. I witnessed it. I took witness of it, me and two others. There was two others there with me prior that I popped with. That we did not speak to one another. We were two in our moments. But I then witnessed the end of time here. I then went back to the beginning of time, and then I asked my place in it all, and why am I here now? And that is what set off the next, for me personally, a never-ending process of discovery of the never end. It would be the best way I could possibly describe it. And that's why I wanted to, and I'm really thankful right now, thank you again, Rob, that we've had this moment to do this, because I just want to tickle it. I just want to tickle it. We're entering the transition phase, as I perceive as the inversion, and it is time now to begin to go back home, and everything is always falling into more perfect space. But it's not something you can just give up on because it's going to happen because I saw it. And it's not going to happen just because I saw it. I only was able to perceive this because that was the gift that I was earning within my self-discovery. That's what I was given to keep going. And this is what you will be given. These little things, these visions, these mystical moments, whatever it is to you that you need to perceive to get engaged. But as you engage this field with your energy, with your heart, with your mind, with your being, and with your blood, you have got to internally cleanse that blood. You do not understand how far what I guess I would call, because there's not a good word I have at this present moment, but there's a negative self-love. And that's the wall. It's the wall between all of us. And we got to break all those walls down. Because it's not about a wall you see on TV. It's not about a wall you see on Game of Thrones. It's not about any of these walls. But again, those movies and those things, all these messages have been there, guys. And I've always watched movies this way. As a child, I even did it. I didn't realize it until I got into my older age and went back. All the keys for you to move forward as you integrate this knowledge and this stuff into your being, all those keys are in your past. They're safely tucked in your past. And nobody can see this from anybody. This is the beauty of the way we do this. When you understand all these things and integrate these things into your being, you will go into the past and adjust who it is that you believe yourself to be, which will automatically cause the future to change, all within this present moment. This is the power. This is the power, and and that's why at this point I'm about done, because I understand how every word I say energizes the field, and more or less I've said enough, but do not do anything I have just said unless it resonates. Because what you're asking and what you're doing is binding yourself within yourself in nature and the law of nature, creation's laws, the higher laws, the real laws of man's laws. Man's laws, I realized as I worked on them, they were mirroring the higher laws. And they did a very beautiful job. They did a very good, they attempted to do a very, very, very good job. So the higher trumps the lower. We have to let go of the lower and strictly moving forward to keep going forward as you really truly wish to experience. You got to keep reaching within higher. And you will find something that will intrigue you. And you may or may not be amazed.
Well, all right. There we go. The gospel according to Patrick. Sharing these understandings, not always easy. Because we have to translate them into language. We have to rely on ideas and concepts and pictograms that are already kind of out there. But what you've done is you've infused some meaning into some of this in a way that perhaps people can wrap their heads around. I really especially like the Cain and Abel piece, which I completely agree with. I've had my own experience around that. So, thanks, and I appreciate that you were able to go that deep and, share that with us. What we should do, Patrick, is maybe we circle back in a couple months and maybe check in again with you, just kind of see where you are, see where your process is, and kind of continue this excursions and notes from the inside with you. I think that could be really interesting to see how it develops, how you develop, and what you're able to share, and get more comfortable with it as you do it. How does that sound?
It sounds like our plan.
Okay. Well, good. I'm always responsive to, bringing in new and fresh insights, especially as they help us navigate through a pretty chaotic and turbulent time. And I'm looking forward to being able to do that with you and just keep yourself grounded and keep breathing and stay on the front lines for the rest of us as we do our best to catch up. Thanks again, Patrick. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. And I just want to end this by saying thank you again. I've known this man who goes by the name Robert here in the public by Phoenix, and he has been a helper here that he does not realize at the moment for me, but it's just blowing up right now. I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you, Robert. At some future point, we will have an opportunity to exchange energy in a way that we want to, and I just look forward to that. And I know today, this moment right here, right now, if you can hear me, this was the anchor that pulled it down. It's the best way to say it right now. Thank you, Robert. Thank you. I love you, brother. I love you.
Love you right back, man. Take good care, Patrick.
All right, take it easy.
When we listen to the radio, we never agree on the station.
Clap.
When we listen to the radio, we never agree on the station.
Clap.
Oh, man. Sneak that little ad in there at the end. Sneaky bastards. I recorded that on Blog Talk. I still have Blog Talk. I haven't disabled it yet. It's actually fairly helpful for actually recording people. And that was not a public recording. I recorded it privately, and they stuck their ads in the front and the back. And I got the front ad. Those sneaky bastards snuck that little ad on the back. That was Patrick. Very interesting interview, and it's raw. It's like a raw cut. It's a raw take of somebody who's opening up in a pretty big way and doing it. Giving voice to it in public. I mean, it's kind of risky. It's kind of risky because you're opening up a very private process. Number one. And bringing it out to people. Number two, the process, as I am interpreting it, is kind of so deep and so profound, and he's just scratching the surface. He told me some other stuff that we didn't get into, and which I would like to get into, but he's not ready. But he had some pretty interesting revelations. But when you go down that path of trying to articulate the ineffable, it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. If you've ever experienced very powerful and theogenic moments, and try to describe them to people afterwards, good luck. Good luck. It's not easy. I think that's why the Huichols did those yarn paintings, because it was a symbolic form of representing their journey and what they experienced along the way as they consumed lots of mushrooms. Anyway, I think Patrick did a very, very fair job of opening up and sharing what's going on for him and his process, and which really, in a lot of ways, is our process too. I think we're all trying to crack out of these cocoons that we've been in, the cocoon of conditioning, the cocoon of trauma, the cocoon of programming. You know, what I really liked about what also Patrick said is he talks about the Christos. You're gonna have to come into some kind of contact and agreement with that energy. I think it's unavoidable. I think it's unavoidable because it is an energy that leads us to a gateway. You know? And that gateway is the higher mind. It's higher consciousness. Real higher consciousness. It's the upper room. So by doing that, we connect ourselves up with that, and we draw the gifts of heaven downwards, bestowed upon us. Well, thank you, Patrick, for being brave enough to come onto the show and sharing with us your process of awakening. And I hope we get to do more of that. Yes. You can find Patrick and his blog at citizen-zen-health.me. Let me go back. Give you the right coordinates. It is Citizen Health. Citizen-health.me. You can see what he's writing about. Keep up with him. All right. Well, why don't we bring this show to a close, and let's have a date for meeting on Sunday night. We'll get to rally round on Sunday night. Look at some of the charts for the week ahead. I'm going to be focusing on 11:10. 11:10, 11:11. Those are the days. Those are the days that I'm looking at. 10:11, 11:10, 10:10. Of course, we got 11:9. That's another goodie, huh? The inverse of 9/11. I think it's going to be those three. Those are the 3 days to fix your gaze upon and see the power and the force of transformation work. But by the way, speaking of epiphanies, I had an epiphany that, this whole thing with George Soros, there's something about George Soros that bothers me. It's not the fact that he's pumping $18 billion or $1 billion, whatever the grotesque amount of money is, into the Open Society Foundation, which is the mothership for all of Soros's downstream NGOs, organizations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That part, I get it. Like, if you want to be a social disruptor, that's what you do. You take that money, you fund all those groups, you roll the dice, and you go into overthrow a country, which they've done on a number of occasions. But you have to ask yourself, why is it that Donald Trump never talks about George Soros? If Vladimir Putin is so powerful, why doesn't he just take George Soros right out? You ever think about that? I was listening to Roger Stone yesterday, and he was talking about a Chinese dissident / tax evader that is in the United States. I forget the guy's name. But he's in the United States, and he's living in a hotel in New York City. And apparently he's very tied into the Clinton Foundation. And has given the Clinton Foundation a lot of money. So he's got some cover from the left. And Xi Jinping wants this guy deported. He wants him out of the United States. He wants him to go back to China so he can get the keys to all of his money and harvest his organs as quickly as possible. So Roger Stone talks about how this guy has been spotted eating dinner at the restaurant in the hotel that he's staying at in New York with George Soros. And I thought about it. It's like, if George Soros, is that sort of open and that's sort of public, and he's such a threat to democracy, at least in this country, and stability and order, why don't you just take him out? It's not like this guy is running a worldwide operation from an underground bunker. He's not doing that. He's apparently capable of going wherever he pleases. But you would think that if you really want to throw a wrench in the machinery, you could just hit him. You could hit him with one of those incendiary flash grenades that was used on that couple from Murrieta, California, the thermite grenade. You hear about that? This couple from Murrieta, California, who were in Las Vegas, and they were being very vocal about what they saw. Their car got eviscerated by a thermite grenade. The fire was so hot that they couldn't put it out. This happened right outside of the residence. Their 16-year-old kid heard a loud bang before the fire started. I mean, why couldn't they just hit him with a thermite grenade? Did you hear about Orville Allman? Orville Allman, 66 years old. Jason Aldean's lawyer died. He died 2 days ago. Died in his sleep. Had something kind of weird happen to him in his sleep. Look, if they can take energy-directed weapons and completely disintegrate neighborhoods within hours in Northern California, why the hell can't they take out George Soros? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Why? It'd be so easy. It would not be that hard. Well, maybe, just maybe, they don't want to take George Soros out. And I'm going to throw out a radical thought here. What if George Soros is actually employed by the right? What if it's his goal to create such a high level of dissidents and to whip these masses up in a frenzy so that they are absolutely crushed by the right? Absolutely crushed. That he is a Pied Piper, not just towards communism, which is what Alex Jones is always going on and on about, but maybe, just maybe, George Soros is the Pied Piper towards fascism. It's a thought. So if you really think about it, whether it's Putin, whether it's Trump, the United States, Russia, if they didn't like the guy, if they didn't have some kind of fiduciary interest in George Soros, he would be gone in a heartbeat. And I just gave you three examples of what that could look like. It's a thought. And I'll leave you with that thought. All right, we're going to wrap it up today. I want to thank, again, Patrick from Citizen-Health, citizen-health.me. And we'll have him back on in a couple months. Touch base with him. In the meantime, you go to his website. Check out what he's doing. You know the drill. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. Unless it's a kid getting kicked out by his sister at 11 o'clock at night because he smokes too much weed. She's a Jehovah's Witness. I tried. I really tried. It was not my role. It was not my role to play an intervention. He had to figure that one out for himself. Have a blessed weekend. I'll see you back on Sunday.